like you're in a foundry. Like lava.
But public sentiment has shifted. Whereas early polls in 2002 showed very few skeptics, as the years moved along, there have been more and more who doubt the official story. In 2006, more than 80% of people were found questioning the 9/11 official account, and more than a third believed it was an inside job or that the U.S. government had a role in the actual attacks. Now, after 10 years, it's the government who has to prop up their own official account. The lies have simply worn thin. The people are now ready to hear the truth. It was elements within our own government working with the terrorists to bring down this country.
We're here to make sure that the official story continues to collapse. We're here to expose the terrorists, the people that really carried out 9/11, the criminals inside the military-industrial complex.
Clearly, our leaders have lied to us. But what really happened? Without knowing every detail, we understand that the official story was paper thin and made for the movie screen. It was more than just incompetence on prior warnings and ignored intelligence about the terrorist.
No warning signs that I'm aware of.
And it was a revelation that the White House had no intention of making public.
President Bush was told in August that Osama bin Laden might be planning an attack involving the hijacking.
Could have predicted.
Nobody in our government, at least.
August 6th, PDP.
I believe the title was Bin Laden Determined to Attack Inside the United States.
The entire national security structure was compromised. More than 20 drills in various federal and military agencies simulated scenarios that later paralleled the real attacks. NORAD stood down as the hijackers approached their targets the day of 9/11. Fighter planes, radar monitors, emergency response components, and other capacities were disabled by some 20 different drills going on throughout government on the day of 9/11. The left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing, but somebody was operating the system. A shadow network connected the stand-down. But if it was a conspiracy, why hasn't anybody talked? The truth is that the media refuses to address and honestly handle the admissions that have come forward. Intelligence officers testified about the scandals inside their terrorist monitoring programs. Abel Danger, for instance, repeatedly linked Mohammed Atta and other al-Qaeda operatives to terrorist plots literally dozens of times. Yet these warnings and many others were totally ignored. FBI translator Sybil Edmonds broke her gag order to blow the whistle on wiretaps she translated leading up to and including the day of September 11, proving that Osama bin Laden and al-Qaeda were working for the U.S. government up until the day of 9/11.
All our intimate relationship with bin Laden and Taliban. We did carry very intimate relationship with these people all the way up to September 11.
Understanding the need for an external enemy, colored by propaganda and myth, to drive military intervention across the globe is key to understanding the motives behind 9/11. The al-Qaeda network, with cells spread across the map, is comparable to a can opener for U.S. military invasion, exposing nation after nation to war, sanctions, or humanitarian intervention. National Security Advisor Zbigniew Brzezinski trained these men to entrap the Soviets in Afghanistan, backed first secretly by the Carter administration. Later, the Reagan administration publicly hailed the freedom fighters, carrying out a protracted war that debilitated the enemy. Later, these men were reformed into the Pentagon client al-Qaeda, to back NATO interest in the Balkan Wars. As the group was rebranded as an enemy, its iconic leader, Osama bin Laden, a billionaire whose family has heavy business ties with the West and whose code name was Tim Osman, became the new face of terror. The perceived menace of these radical groups, spread out in nations across the Islamic world, has contributed significantly to the pretext for invading, bombing, or going to war. Cui bono, who benefits? History confirms false flags behind nearly every major war, from the Gulf of Tonkin, the USS Maine, babies thrown from incubators, WMD lies, and so much more. Many of our leaders burned around the potential that a false flag could provide for their foreign policy and domestic agenda. The Project for a New American Century, or PNAC, the neocon group that would soon fill much of the Bush administration, wrote in 2000 how a, quote, new Pearl Harbor could help them pursue their plan for a global American empire, noting that a catastrophic and catalyzing event would help move their agenda forward in a timely fashion. Brzezinski also wrote in his Grand Chessboard in 1997 how foreign policy had to be buoyed by widely perceived external threat. Then, just days after 9/11, the Council on Foreign Relations met to openly discuss how the crisis could be used to build a, quote, new world order.
There is a chance for the President of the United States to use this disaster, and that is a new world order.
Now, in the Obama administration, we've heard about the next terror attack. We've seen advisors like Robert Shapiro hail the usefulness of an Oklahoma City or 9/11 style attack. Glenn Beck and Michael Savage both warn how the Obama administration could seize upon another terror attack to blame the right. The Homeland Security apparatus has been turned around on the people. Instead of pursuing suspected radical jihadists, outspoken Americans have been placed under suspicion, including returning vets, Tea Party activists, peaceful opponents of the Federal Reserve, and supporters of third-party candidates, among others. They've all been identified as potential domestic terrorists in law enforcement documents. And this has been reinforced by Homeland Security memos and its constant propaganda.
Don't assume it was left by accident. If you see something, say something.
Chuck Norris is only the most recent of many prominent citizens who become concerned about videos depicting white Americans, not Muslim radicals, as likely terrorists, cementing the notion that the police state was built for the people. They've been conditioned for slavery by TSA pat-downs, body scans, and other invasive and unconstitutional searches of airline passengers. But now that's expanded into bus passengers and highway checkpoints.
The system will never admit the truth that's plainly in front of us. It's simply too invested in the lie. But the truth will come out through tireless research and persistent efforts. It already has in so many thousands of documents filed through Freedom of Information requests and in the hundreds of professionals in media, government, military, and other areas who've blown the whistle on their part of the schemes. The truth about 9/11 has a dangerous parallel to the JFK assassination. Even as more and more of the truth came out and new investigations were done, including several within Congress itself, the government still stuck by the official lie established by the Warren Commission. And if we don't stand up now, the same thing's going to happen with this terrible and tragic event. Meanwhile, we must never stop seeking the truth and demanding answers. Eventually, we will win. I'm Aaron Dykes reporting for InfoWars Nightly News. Alex, back to you.
Great job, Aaron. And that's just a small portion of the smoking gun facts of 9/11. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And yeah, it's scary to stand up against these murderers. A lot of people say, well, if it's all true, why are you and Richard Gage and so many others still alive? Jesse Ventura. Because if they kill us, it underlines, it highlights, it underscores everything we've said and done. It makes us martyrs. No, they'd rather just call us tinfoil hat-wearing people because we know the true history. And now we see NATO working with al-Qaeda and handing over Libya to them and billions of dollars and heat-seeking missiles. And in a couple of years, when they attack us or take the blame for an attack, I'll be on air saying, look, our government helped put them in power in Libya. And people will go, be quiet, conspiracy theorists. And I'll go, no, here's 50 news clips. Here's the articles. They'll just say, be quiet, un-American. And the biggest issue is they're now rebranding the threat of al-Qaeda onto anybody that resists corruption, anybody who is a true American and loves the Bill of Rights and Constitution. Now, Richard Gage is coming up, the head of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, to give us his take on 10 years later. But first, I want to go to this report filed by Rob Jacobson behind the camera and Darren McBreen, our reporter, out on the street. We talked to quite a few people, and Darren has told me that all of them but one, and that person could hardly talk, said that it was a controlled demolition or looked suspicious. Here is this powerful report.
Thank you, Alex. I'm Darren McBreen for InfoWars Nightly News. We're here at the University of Texas in Austin just days before the 10th anniversary of 9/11, and we're wondering how many people are aware that there was a third tower that fell, Building 7, which was not hit by a plane, but collapsed demolition style at 5:20 p.m., many hours after the first two towers fell. What are your thoughts when you see that? This was not hit by an airplane. It collapsed many hours after the first two towers fell.
I mean, it sort of looks like a planned demolition, but it could also be a lot of other things.
Oh, wow.
Have you ever seen that video before?
I have, actually. It was This is weird, but it was one of those conspiracy videos I saw. But yeah, it was pretty crazy, the video I saw. It just like dropped straight down.
Have you ever seen the video before?
Not at that building, no. No.
Do you find it interesting that it was not featured in the 9/11 Commission report?
It wasn't featured at all? That is interesting. And it looked, it was a very controlled blast, it seemed.
What are your thoughts when you see that building go down like that?
I don't really know what happened to it. I don't think anyone, the government probably wouldn't tell us.
I'm actually in the College of Architecture as a grad student and have seen several demolitions, and it does look completely controlled.
I mean, it looked like a controlled demolition. It didn't look like the explosion happened from, one side, coming in or anything like that. It looked like it kind of happened from the bottom and just kind of imploded on itself.
Is that the first time you've seen the video?
Yes, definitely.
That's the first time I've ever seen that, yeah.
This is my first time actually hearing about Building 7, so, that tells you how much they've covered it, but that's very weird. It really looks like a demolition implosion.
I don't remember seeing it at all. I remember watching both the second tower collapse live, and I don't remember hearing or seeing anything at the time about that.
As most of the InfoWars audience is aware, World Trade Center leaseholder Larry Silverstein gave the okay to pull the building moments before Building 7 collapsed. BBC's Jane Stanley even reported Building 7's collapse minutes before the event actually happened. And you can even see Building 7 clearly behind her as she gives the report.
Yesterday I watched a video where a news lady was talking and she said the third building just fell. But behind her, the third building had not fallen yet. So that's weird.
Jane Stanley.
You saw that then, yeah.
Oh, of course.
She's like, oh, it fell down and it's still behind her.
You would think that she would wait till it fell, even if she had insider information that the thing was going down. She has some sort of ESP.
There are currently close to 1,500 architects and engineers who are saying that it was indeed a controlled demolition.
Well, I mean, that's the kind of thing where we need some sort of investigation, and if the government isn't going to do that sort of investigating, then we need a third party to step in and, have the authority and the resources to do that.
I mean, like a lot of people, question the Warren Commission. That doesn't make all of them kooks or conspiracy theorists.
What do you feel about losing a lot of our civil liberties since 9/11?
It sucks. You have people that can invade your phone calls and text messages and emails, and so you really don't have any privacy, and that really scares me.
So I think that 9/11 was sort of the Trojan horse for all that sort of policy to come in.
If you notice, there's free speech zones. We can only free speech in certain areas now. So, yeah, it's almost like everything that we once had is slowly shrinking.
Is it worth it to make us more safe, to lose our liberties?
No, certainly not. I mean, 9/11 was a terrible event, but in terms of the things that have happened since then making us more safe, I'd say that's the other side of the coin.
Do you think there needs to be a new investigation into September 11th?
I don't think it would hurt. I don't know how much we would know about it or, again, maybe how unbiased it would be, but I think it always is something that is interesting to look at further.
I think America should demand a new investigation.
Definitely be interesting to see things that I'm sure the government didn't want the public knowing at the time.
The only way to get to the bottom of it is to do more research.
I honestly believe the government's corrupt. Everyone lies. I don't think people should just put all their faith and trust in a government who is just completely selfish and only worrying about themselves.
10 years after 9/11, we could see that much of the public is aware that they're not being told everything there is to know about the tragic events of that day. The mainstream media, however, continues to avoid discussing Building 7. Instead, they insist on pushing the official fable and ridicule any American who demands a new investigation. I'm Darren McBreen for InfoWars Nightly News. Back to you, Alex.
Thank you, Darren. Great job. Look, the great part about this being my news program, I'm the news director, I'm the head of Infowars.com, is that I can just stop the news and make a comment. And I want to tell you a brief story here before we go to break and come back with Richard Gage. I have a friend who is high level at the Austin airport in public relations. I'll just leave it at that. And this was like 4 years ago. He was visiting his brother at a local TV station. I was over there. And he came in and he said, get the news on because it's about to air. And he goes, I guarantee you that I watched them interview 40-plus people, and they were all against the newest type, abuse